There were rumors, gosh, decade plus ago that Nike was going to make a run at acquiring Under Armour. Did they ever reach out?
No. They like killing people sometimes. So,
by the way, you have said before they don't play fair. Why not?
Because they're a big company. Everybody has tools. Everybody has resources, and there's a lot of strengths to being a big company, and there's a lot of strengths to being a small company. We're sort of in this tween stage where I feel that we're more agile than the bigs, and we've got more resources than the smalls in our industry today where people are coming from. Like if we want to go sign an athlete, an asset, a league, we're a $5 billion-ish company with a $500 million marketing budget. That's a big enough budget to do anything. And what I hear from people more often, which stepping back into the CEO chair has been more about, is, boy, it doesn't feel like you guys are spending $500 million on marketing. And so that's one of the big initiatives that I have this time around, is making sure that it really, gets through, that we're not just showing up in sort of, non-active aspects of the world of, there's a passive Under Armour logo on a wall. If a bank could do the deal, we shouldn't do it, like a naming rights deal or things like that. We should be proactive. We should be living and breathing with our athletes, on body, working with cool and influence. And it's different today that the world works. It's not just about signing a team or signing an athlete, because Steph Curry winning another NBA championship doesn't mean that sales will skyrocket the next day. All has to be part of a much bigger plan and a much bigger process, which is a long working process.
Speaking of marketing and Steph Curry, explain how Ken Bazemore helped you.
Yeah, he's instrumental. Steph Curry was this amazing number 7 draft pick, and he was on to his, second or third year of his contract, and he was coming available with the Golden State Warriors. We had a guy who had a relationship that knew Steph, but knew Ken. Ken was like a journeyman in the NBA, but ended up playing, 15, 16 years, made a ton of money. Ken happened to be Steph Curry's locker mate for the Warriors. And so in seducing Stephen, it wasn't just, let's send you a bunch of stuff, do you know us? It was like, well, how do we have our first handshake? So the first handshake was, let's sign the guy in the locker next to Stephen, and then we're going to overwhelm him with product. We'd send him a package every day. He'd just get something else. Imagine Steph's like, man, those guys, they take care of you, huh? Yeah, they take care of me. Why they really take care of you? And Ken, you don't play that much either. Well, I wonder what it'd be like if I talked to them. And so it sort of began the relationship, and there was a good relationship in place, but that got us in the door and got us our pitch and our first shot at Stephen. And then who put it over the edge was his daughter, Riley, actually.
What did he say about that?
Well, when he was coming down, we got into the conversations. Nike and Adidas were the two that he was contemplating. Ken helped us get Under Armour into the conversation with Stephen. And so when he was trying to make the call, I was like, all right, we got to pick a shoe brand. What do you want to do, Stephen? He's home with Aisha and his daughter, Riley, just at the time. And I think she was 2 years old or so. And he's sitting on the couch like this, and he had all 3 shoe boxes lined up on the coffee table. And he took a shoe out, and he had a shoe sitting on each one of the 3 different shoe boxes. And, one's orange, one's red, and ours is black. And he goes, which one do you think I should do? And so she turns around like a 2-year-old and wobbles over to the thing, and she picks up the Nike shoe. She looks at it, turns it backwards, throws it over her shoulder. She goes over, she picks up the Adidas shoe. She looks at it, turns it over, throws it over her shoulder. Then she picks it up and she turns around and she goes, here, Daddy, this one. And so Riley Curry is the reason that Under Armour was able to sign with Stephen. So.
Okay, tough point in the relationship. 2018. I think you and your then president and COO travel west to convince Steph not to leave the brand. Take me into that meeting and what's discussed.
Culture, love, relationship, personality. The brand was getting punched from a couple different angles, and Stephen was in. He was a great partner. We went in there and we broke bread and we had a conversation, said what we would like to do, but that was a generation of Curry brand. And there's not an athlete in the world that doesn't say, or a phone call from an agent that I get, which are typically the eye rolls of, okay, get ready for it, I want you to sit down, but we want to do something innovative, whatever, whether it's a film project, whether it's an athlete, whether it's an asset, but we'd like to create something kind of like what Jordan brand is for Nike. And you're like, yeah. Everybody wants to build the next Jordan brand. It's very difficult to do, though. Our commitment to doing that with Stefan has been an endeavor of love and learning and knowing just how much you just have to be resilient, of just staying and sticking with it just over and over and over again.
And I was going to say, going into that meeting, I think you're annoyed that he's not wearing enough Under Armour product to games. He's annoyed that his shoes aren't selling as well as he'd like. As you're thinking about how you game plan that meeting, what's going through your head, and then how do you solve it when you're actually in that situation? Because this is just one example. I'm sure these sorts of things come up all the time when you're.
Yeah, there's a human dynamic in everything. A bathroom break at the appropriate time as well, just cool things down, make sure everybody can voice. But
and you're conscious of that.
Yeah, but this is like any athlete relationship is always about people want to be heard. I'm not just some gimmick, some slogan, but I'm a person. So my culture, my brand, my personality have to be a part of that. So it's critical that we have that. We're in the dawn of the Lake Tahoe tournament where Stefan shows up every year and he's best in class and has the dreams of playing on the at least the senior tour someday. I think he is that good. But it was Curry Golf was a part of it. What we do with Curry Women's, what we do with Curry Kids, how we make him the ambassador, and having an interaction like that, taking him to Asia last year. It was extraordinary. We had a 4-city tour over 6 days that was planned. It turned into a 3-city tour because we showed up at one of the cities and they said, "I'm sorry, but you can't come here, Mr. Curry." We said, well, why not? He said, because your hotel, the Ritz-Carlton, there's 8,000 people that are waiting for you to get there. Every room is rented. There's people just riding the elevators up and down. And the phenomenon that he creates is something which is extraordinary. And so, that's our obligation, is to make sure that we can do a good job of harvest that love that people have of something that's so pure, which is the stroke of Stephen Curry, which there's just nothing else like it.
What lessons have you learned from kind of the uniqueness of that partnership? And how do you get it to where you'd like it to be long-term?
Yeah. Any one of our relationships is something which is meant to be authentic, right? It has to be felt. We've been doing this a long time and we work in a competitive industry. There's a lot of brands that compete that try to make their version of what's the next great sports brand, or I have the next great basketball shoe. And that's why, having an ambassador like Steph and having a product team and the innovation team like what we have. Curry Flow is something we'll show you later today, but the stickiness of the innovation or technology that exists in that shoe, it's second to none. And it's part of what helps create the separation or the stopping power between Stefan and his opponents, which is something which is, what our brand is meant to do, is help give you that little nub, that little edge that just allows you to be a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, maybe fight a little bit longer.